Hello and welcome to the third Parenting Little Ones Q&A program of our summer series. My name is Sarah Ellen Hickel, and I am a family place librarian with Pikes Peak Library District. And tonight, our theme is going to be preschool and kindergarten prep. And basically that just means school readiness and Montessori methods. So as we are welcoming in some of our attendees, I'll just give some of the housekeeping information. Tonight's session will be recorded, and any attendees, if you could please change your name to match whatever it is in your registration, that would be helpful for me because I'll be writing those down and making sure I send the follow-up email to you afterwards. That email is going to include a link to our survey, and that survey is your entrance into our $50 gift card drawing, which we do weekly, and our KiwiCo Crate grand prize drawing. And we will be doing 3 of those at the end of the series, which goes through August. If you have not yet registered for other programs in our series, registration is still open. So please feel free. We have topics like behavior and emotions, big emotions, big behaviors, and potty training, elimination communication, and is this normal? What's going on with development? So lots of good things still to come. All right, I'm going to start introducing our panelists tonight, and we have the great pleasure of having some real wonderful experts. We have Holly Van Wieren, who is a literacy specialist, and she is a former kindergarten teacher, has lots of experience in the teaching field. We also have Mara Denton, who is a Montessori directress with Hope Montessori in Monument, and Hope Montessori is all over El Paso County, but she'll talk about that a little bit more. And we'd also like to welcome Denise Dixon, who is the Early Childhood Manager for Alliance for Kids Joint Initiative. So thank you all for joining us. And as a reminder to our attendees who are just coming on, the recording will not see you or your names. Please change your names to reflect your registration name. And if you have any questions, feel free to start populating that into the Q&A or the chat, and I'll be relaying those questions to our panelists. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself, Mara, and what kind of questions you can answer tonight?
So I'm Mara Denton, and as Sarah Ellen had said, I am a Montessori directress in one of the Hope Montessori Academy locations. There are 4 within El Paso County. The type of questions I can just answer is just questions about like how the Montessori method works, just what kind of like Montessori works we have available in our classrooms. And I would say that's mainly the 2 that are just common things that I answer, is just about the Montessori method and the Montessori works.
Thank you. Holly, would you tell us a little bit more about your background and yourself, please?
Sure. I am the mother of 5 grown children, the youngest of them are twins, boy-girl twins. So I learned a lot about teaching from homeschooling those twins for a few years. We have had experience with putting our kids in all kinds of schools. So we've been in private schools and charter schools, most recently regular public schools and homeschooling. We every year in March, we got together, my husband and I, and said, what's the best for this one? What's the best for this one? So kind of a lot of different kinds of experience. Most recently, for about the last 10 years, I've been involved in literacy, which is helping kids who struggle with reading, helping parents recognize what the problems are and what to do about it and what resources are out there. My real passion is to help both kids with their reading and also to support families, because it's quite a journey if a child is struggling in that area at all with language arts. I have my own business called Above and Beyond the Classroom, and that is a private tutoring business. It's a therapy, a set of therapy sessions for the children, and also consulting with parents as needed. So it's my delight to be here.
And Denise, would you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself and Alliance for Kids?
Sure. Again, my name is Denise Dixon, and I'm the Early Childhood Manager with Alliance for Kids. We do quite a bit of programs with the Joint Initiative as well, but Alliance for Kids does programs that helps providers and families file quality childcare. We help families with quality childcare, and we help providers get to quality childcare. And so what we make sure is that they know how to use Colorado Shines, families, how to go on there, how to navigate that system, and then providers, how to go on there and make sure their information is up to date. How do they get different programs? Because that's the system that the state uses to push all of their programs through. So we help providers to make sure that they can navigate that. We also help families find help for their students with behavioral issues so that they can stay in childcare opposed to being suspended. So we are working with TRE with that. And so we do a lot of small programs for that. So that's what we do at Alliance for Kids.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to have all of you here. I'm going to go ahead and run a poll now. What we'd like to know is, parents, what ages kiddos do you have? So I'm launching that now. And check all the ones that are correct for your family or situation. All right, looks like everybody currently here has voted, so I'm going to share that. So it looks like we have several 3-year-olds and really the gamut from babies through 4 years. So there might be some who are going to be starting kindergarten very soon within the next year or so. Let me close out that poll. And we do have one question in the queue, so I will read that. But as I read that, folks, if you have any particular questions, feel free to pop that into the Q&A, and I will be asking our panelists those as we keep going. So we have a question here. How important is it that my child can write letters when they start kindergarten? Who would like to answer that question?
I'll take it. I'll start it. Everybody else can join in. I taught kindergarten for many, many years. And I will tell you that it's not as important that your child be able to write letters as that they know how to hold a pencil correctly. And you can start as early as 1 or 2 years of age. Believe it or not, helping your child, we call it the 3-finger grip. And it's something that just is the most comfortable for children, the least muscle soreness when they do learn to write. But more importantly than writing, they should be able to recognize by kindergarten both capital and lowercase letters by name. The sounds they learn in kindergarten, but really the names of the letters are really, really important, as well as numbers, obviously, too.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that? That was a great answer, Holly.
Well, I would like how Holly was talking about how it's important to, like, with the grip, like even in the Montessori schools, we start that at like a young age where we have the works that can pertain to using the pincer grip. So that's just like, we start that. I even do that in my 2-year-old's program where I have certain works that are related to just working on the pincer grip.
Mara, can you explain for those who maybe are not familiar with Montessori methods, what do you mean by works?
So Montessori is not like a play-based center. We do a lot of like working on practical life. So that's just learning how to do like sweeping or cleaning or things like that. And then sensorial, it can work on like that's more like colors and sounds and textures and things like that. The work is just like working more on skills. So working on like your pincer grip, your whole hand grasp. So that would just say that was just more like the works for Montessori.
Can you share an example of what kind of works that you would do to help children start to learn how to do those pencil grips and everything?
The pincer grip, yeah. So one of the things that I have in my classroom is I have like a mini set of tongs, and so it's able to help like do that. So like they are able to transfer. How I do it is they have like pom-poms, and they have to transfer the pom-poms into like a bowl. So that is something that can help work those muscles.
That sounds great. So that's a great tip for things that you can do at home. All right, well, we're still looking for more questions in the queue. Holly, what other things can parents work on to get a child ready for kindergarten?
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to say that you parents, I see so many of you have 3-year-olds. This is a magical time you have with your kiddos. Their brains are going crazy. They are so ready to learn. They're ready to learn concepts. They're ready to memorize things. They're ready to learn rhymes. I don't know how many parents, how many of you are taking your kids to the library or just reading to them nursery rhymes or playing silly rhyming songs in the car. That is really, really important for pre-literacy stuff. It's really important. The biggest thing you can do for your child is read to your child, starting even before they're born. Reading. The research shows that they will recognize your voice when they're born because they've heard it while you're pregnant with the child. And reading to them is so important. All vocabulary that children have prior to going in school is from oral language. After they get in school, they pick up vocab from what they read. But so it's so important that parents read, teachers read to children. That's how they pick up the phrasing, their own language, so many things. And it's a simple thing. And, it's so wonderful because you have that child on your lap. And I always say it's such an intimate time with your child. You just don't want to miss that. And I would say, walk away from the devices while they're little and just spend time talking with them.
I know as a children's librarian, we love to talk about reading to kids. And if you need any information or resources to find good books that are excellent to read to babies, toddlers, or preschoolers, we have recommended reading lists. And of course, we all have our own favorites to share as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of the Mara or Denise, do you have any information to add to what Holly was sharing? Other things about how to generally get your child ready for kindergarten?
I do not. I spend more time working with the training the coaches to go into facilities. I don't spend a lot of time coaching the coaches to teach, the teachers to teach in those facilities.
I mean, all I can really is just agree is like how reading is so important. Like having the teacher read. I spend at least 30 minutes every day just reading books to the children in my classroom, even if it's books we've read over and over again. Like I had recently, we read the Pout Pout Fish every single day, and I was able to have one of my 2-year-olds one day even just start saying the words, like he knew what was coming up. So like that's just, I just feel like that's really cool to see in a 2-year-old because, A, they're listening, and B, they know what's going to come up next and they can start recognizing the story.
Yeah.
And the other thing you're doing, Mara, is you are training the kids in their attention and focus, which is so good to do at a young age. You're teaching them by the time they get to kindergarten, your kiddos probably will be the ones that will be able to sit still for longer times. And as a former kindergarten teacher, that can be very frustrating if you have a child who just doesn't have that attention span. So it starts very early. So I think that's awesome, Mara.
It sounds like even, being able to sit still for a certain period of time is something to start getting your child ready for kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a few more questions in the Q&A now, so I'll go ahead and read the first one. We have an attendee who says, my child is 3 and they know their letters, colors, and shapes, etc. They read 2 hours a day, loves books. I'm a stay-at-home mom, but a teacher, so I really do a ton with my child from a play and academic side. But my child is immunocompromised and we are super cautious with COVID. Are they doomed without socializing at this age? This is so important for kids. I'm really nervous about this.
I would say that your child is not doomed, but the research shows from this very, very strange year that we've had with schools that kids absolutely have to be around other kids. There are times and there are things that are beyond your control as parents, and you should never beat yourself up over the things you can't control. But any opportunity to get your child with other children, the research is showing it helps with their learning, even if they're around other kids. So again, not to beat yourself up, but whatever you can do, take advantage of that. Your child is definitely not doomed. Don't even go there. That just creates a lot of parent guilt, I think, unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I would agree. Your child's not doomed because, again, you're not the only parent that's dealing with the same thing. And so you're gonna, when your child goes to school, there's gonna be multiple kids, and the teachers and the administrative know where they're at, just like every other kid. And so when they come into school, there's like this kind of unspoken thing of, okay, COVID was here, we know that, so here's where kids are going to start off at. Mm-hmm. So your child's not doomed, just go with it. But I agree with Holly, get them out there as to many things as they can, but be cautious at the same time. But it's important to get them there, library time, different things like that. And there's definitely programs out there that are very cautious in allowing kids to be a part of those things. So I would agree.
And I think don't sell yourself short with the socialization that you provide in your family. And if you have family members that your child is socializing with, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual, considering COVID, I know that a lot of children are being able to interact with grandparents or family members through different, virtual platforms like FaceTime or Skype or all of those different things. And so any socialization is good. And so you are still providing that socialization. And when you play together and are allowing your child to lead the play, that is providing some of that socialization that they need as well. Yeah. So I will also just mention that we do have 2 programs coming up where we're going to have both behavior specialists, mental health specialists. They can talk about socialization and social skills and some of that too. So please do come back to our programs because I think they will also be really valuable help for you. All right, we have another question here. My 2.5-year-old loves books. They read their books from memory. Language is pretty advanced. What are some other things I can do to help them learn? They know ABCs, basic shapes and colors. We try to follow Montessori methods, but I have a hard time knowing what to do next.
I've working with 2-year-olds. I feel like you're doing really the best thing that you can do. I guess the thing that you could do next is just maybe finding the harder books. I know they can't read, but like challenging them the more, I feel would be good.
And also research shows that talking about the book with a child really, really helps. It helps their comprehension, it helps their language, communication skills. So even if a child has memorized a book, which a lot of parents think is not really reading, it's okay, because if they can do that, they're on the right track for sure. But talking about what happens in the book, and can the child relate to something that's happened in the book? Does that happen in our family? Would you do that? What's your favorite character? And a little bit older than 2.5, but 3 and 4 year olds can talk about, so how could the ending have been different? Those kinds of things. Just get the kids talking. And children really need to hear parents model their thinking. A lot of times we parents just assume that kids understand our thinking, and we need to think out loud, and it might seem almost unnatural to us. But to say to a child, I was just wondering about that myself. I was just thinking, that's all really good for children to see and to hear how other people think, how adults think. So talking about what the kids are reading.
I love that, Holly. I love being able to talk to parents about when you're planning out your day. Let's say you have several errands to run that day. Actually talk out loud through your logic. Like if you're planning to go to the post office and you need to go to the grocery store, and then maybe you need to run and visit a friend, what are you going to do first? Maybe we don't go to the grocery store first because we don't want to leave the milk in the car because the milk would spoil because it would get warm in the car, right? Maybe we're going to go to the post office first because it's on our way to our friend's house. So that kind of talking about what you're doing and what you're planning is exactly what Holly is talking about. Your kids learn how to logically think about things, how to reason things out from those kinds of discussions. And something else that you can do to really help extend the reading that your child is doing as well is retell the stories. So they've got some favorite books, maybe pull out some stuffed animals and say, let's tell the story with our little friends here. How would we change it if we wanted a different ending? And what Holly was saying about looking at books, if you get new books that they haven't read before, talk about the pictures before you actually read the stories. Talk about what do you think, this character looks sad? I wonder why they're sad. I wonder what's going to happen, or I wonder why, what happened to make them sad, and kind of, again, reason things out as you're looking at books.
And also, as a kindergarten teachers always look for the basic knowledge about books. So does a child know how to hold a book? Do they understand that there's a title and there's a cover and a title and a spine? Even little ones can understand all those things about books. In what direction do we turn pages? How do you turn pages? That's a big one for some kids, just how to turn a page properly. But those are things actually that kindergarten teachers look as part of their pre-literacy assessments, that kind of basic book knowledge. It sounds like your daughter at 2.5 or your child at 2.5 is well able to have those things modeled and grasp them.
All right, well, we have several other questions in the queue. So I'm hearing a weird echo. So I'm going to start going through those, and I think we'll get even more ideas here for our different parents about getting ready for kindergarten. So we have who asks, is there a list of skills needed to be school ready? I know there are lists out there, but Holly, is there one that you recommend in particular?
I think that it really depends on the school. Our kindergarten team at every different school I've worked at always has put together their own list. And so inquire about at the school that your child may be going to, and they have wonderful lists online. If you're homeschooling, I worked this past year as manager of a homeschool program at our school, and the homeschool parents are wonderful with sharing ideas. They're just amazing. So I would reach out to other homeschool parents if that's your situation. Otherwise, check with your local school where you think your child will attend.
I also want to add in that I will be sending out an email after this program, probably tomorrow or Saturday, with a list of resources that Mara and Holly and Denise provide. And I found a few lists from the Colorado State Department of Education that I'll be including, and some other things as well. So be on the lookout for that email. And that will also have the survey link so that you can get your entry into our $50 gift prize drawing. So I will finish up with that question. We've got one more. My child is born in August, and for many kinder classes, I have the option to hold them off until they are 6 versus starting at 5. My husband is unsure. I want to wait till my child is 6. Is there any advantage to either?
Well, we used to tell our parents, give yourself the gift of time. Those of you, you're all parents, you know how quickly you blink your eyes and they're in school already, and blink your eyes again and they're attending middle school. It goes so quickly. It does not hurt a child unless the child is absolutely going to be bored. And that's kind of a parent decision. I really believe that parents know their children better than any teacher ever could. And so you have to make that decision, and those are hard decisions. It's not going to hurt to hold them out a year unless they're so bored that they are just going to go crazy or drive you crazy, maybe even worse. But I think the gift of time is something to consider with parents and children. And while you're waiting, take advantage of these wonderful programs that Denise and Mara are offering. Take advantage of what is out there and give your child that gift. Mara, what do you think about that?
Like, I would agree. Like the gift of time is an important one. But like, I don't feel like there's any advantages or disadvantages of starting your child in kindergarten at 5 or 6. Sometimes I feel like if you wait closer to 6, they might be more like socially and emotionally ready, which is a very important thing. When I have kids who are about to turn 3, that's one thing I look at is, are they socially and emotionally ready to go on to like the older classroom? That's a very important thing. So if you, like Holly said, look at the kid too, like, are they going to be ready if they start at 5, like being a young 5, or do you think they'll be ready when they're at 6?
I think those are really good points. Thank you. All right, we have a question. Should I start introducing the ABCs just as they are? I know some people do phonics first versus just memorizing the letters. Any thoughts on this?
Go with names first. They're easier. Capitals are easier than lowercase, but if you're going to introduce letters, please introduce both capital and lowercase. Get your child to write their name for kindergarten with 1 capital and the rest lowercase. It's a big struggle for kindergarten teachers to try to break kids of that habit. Traditionally, the sounds come in preschool, some preschools, but definitely in kindergarten. And it's easier to learn the letter names. But if your child has the names, go for it. Say A apple, and add in that if they're ready for it. Don't hold back. Oh my gosh, these two-year-olds are ready to learn letter names, and they're ready to, if they can't name them, they're at least ready to recognize them. Like, is this an A or something like that, or point it out in a book. So again, golden magic time for you to be teaching these things.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Holly. Like, in the 2-year-old room I'm in, we are able to like recognize our letters. Like, all the children in my room know what their name at least starts with. And I feel that's important to be able to recognize it, especially like when they come into the classroom first thing of the day, they can see their name tag and recognize which one is theirs just by looking at the letters in their name.
Right.
I'd just like to point out that, we have a lot of alphabet books at PPLD. You can get both the traditional alphabet books that go, A, B, C, 3, all the way through to Z. There's also non-traditional ones. We have lists for both. And when you are out and about, you don't have to necessarily just go from a book or from flashcards. Look for letters in your environment. Point out print when you see it. So when you are pouring cereal, if you've got a cereal box, point out the letters in the box. When you're at the grocery store, feel free to do a letter of the day hunt. Oh, we're going to look for this letter today. Maybe start out with the letters that are in their names. As Mara was saying, they love learning the letters that are in their names first.
Right. And generally, when kids start learning a few letters, they are so excited to get out and about and say, oh my gosh, I just passed an A. They do that on their own. And, if you present it as fun and exciting, it is fun and exciting. So generally, when they start learning, they will also start their own little games that way. Looking at license plates, we always did that.
All right, we have another question here. Is it beneficial to send my child to preschool? I am a stay-at-home parent and don't need to do daycare or preschool, but can do it if it may help better prepare them for kindergarten.
I wouldn't necessarily where even just getting them in a preschool or a daycare, like at least 1 day a week or 2 days a week can be beneficial because it can help build those social skills with being around other children that are the same age. But I mean, it's not going to be there's no advantage or disadvantage to it.
As a former kindergarten teacher, I will say that we could tell in general which kids had and had not been to a preschool. There are preschools that are more like daycare centers, and that's okay, no judgment there. But we could tell the kids that had not had that exposure to the letters, to the academics versus what may or may not be provided. And Tanisi, you could probably speak to that in terms of, what they teach or don't teach in daycares. I think the content is more important than how you do it. So if you take on those things, those teaching things that they might get in a preschool, that's fine, do that at home. If you feel like there are a lot of parents who say, I can't teach my child. And that's okay, because the relationship between mother and child is more important, I think, than that. Then check out all the great resources for academic preschools. Or Denise, what about what's going on with the daycare world in terms of the teaching?
Yeah, we do help families find they don't even have to go full time. They can go a couple days a week where the kid goes 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And we help families find quality childcare. There's a program called Colorado Shines, and that's for quality. You're looking for programs that are ranged in that 3 to 5 ratio that is teaching kids to be kindergarten ready, preschool ready, so that they have those skills when they go, that they're not sitting around watching television and it's just a daycare, but it is quality programs for families. And that's what we do. We make sure that those programs are quality. There's 440 programs in El Paso County. There's 120 something that are working through their quality program. That's awesome. So there's quality programs all over El Paso County. It's just, how do you find them? How do you find them, and how do you get your kids in those programs? And so we're working with those programs. So if you're interested, you'll get my information, and we can talk, because there's quite a few that are ready. And now that there's the kindergarten program that's going to be universal preschool coming out, we're working with those programs as well. That is going to be quality, because we do want it quality. We want kids ready for kindergarten.
Yeah, I think what I'm definitely hearing here from Denise, and there's a difference between childcare that is just childcare and then programs that are quality programs that will really help prepare your child for kindergarten. And I can't say enough for Alliance for Kids and the Colorado Shines program. They are excellent at finding programs that are in your neighborhood that are convenient to either where you live or where you work. Right, Denise?
Yes. Yeah, they go off of your zip code. So there could be quite a few in your zip code that you're not even familiar that's there, but we can help you find that. And we're still working every day. There's programs that are calling us that are ready to be qualified programs that want to be certified, that want to be quality.
And these are not just childcare centers, is that correct?
No, these are childcare homes as well. And we work with childcare families that parents just decide today that, hey, I want to be a childcare home that want to be quality for other kids in the community. How do I do that? I'm an ex-teacher. How do I do that? We run programs for pre-licensing that can help families to be able to do that. So we do a lot of things that can get family childcare homes quality as well. Because again, that's a smaller group of children that gives the children a little bit more attention that they may not get in a center, but they may get at a childcare home.
That is great. All right, we have some more questions here. So let me start going through these. My child is 1, almost 2. School is farish away, but what can I do now to start preparing them for school?
Talk to your child. Talk to your child and read to your child. If you do that, you are doing tons for your child at that age.
I'd like to say too that in library land, we like to talk about the 5 practices of early literacy. And those are talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing. So playing with your child is just as important as the others. You can talk so much while you play, and they learn so much while they play. We also offer programs at the library for toddlers. So I know we've been slowly getting back into offering programs, but Toddler Times will be starting again in September at many of your local library branches. So keep an eye out for that. Toddler Time programs are specifically for 1 and 2-year-olds. We also have story time programs that are ages 3 and up, and we offer baby times for ages 0 to 12 months. So those are great programs. If you're not ready to have your child in a childcare center or to be in preschool, but you want to get them interacting with other children and starting to socialize and meet other kids, those are great things that you can do, is bring your child to one of the library programs. Mara, do you have anything to add to that question?
I mean, just like how Holly said, reading is important. And even I would feel like being a model for your child. So if you want them to do something, then you have to model it yourself too. So like an example of that would be in our classroom, even like pushing in your chair. Yes, it'd be so much easier to use my foot to push in a chair, but no, I don't want my children to do that. So getting up and like pushing it in with my hands, like just being a model, I feel is very important too.
I also think that 1 and 2-year-olds are very capable of being trained in things like when they talk to you, make sure that you have their eye contact. If there's some way that you can make sure they hear you by saying, yes, mom, or whatever it is, that they acknowledge that they've heard you. Those things go so far once they get into school, but you can start so early training those little kiddos in those kind of good habits, not to interrupt somebody, even though they don't understand the whole concept, they'll learn, because you can just say, you know what, somebody else was talking. Even at a very young age, they're going to be trained. They're going to be trained anyway, so you might as well train them in the best that you can offer. There's a lot of good things, even at that young age. The kids are so much more capable, I think, than we ever thought before at the young ages.
And at the young age too, like they absorb so much information. So like they're sponges, they absorb everything. And like Holly said, yes, they don't always understand that they're interrupting somebody, but that's when you can be like, I'll get to you in a second as soon as I'm done talking with whoever you're talking to. Another thing too that I work with them is if they see you're talking, at least putting their hand on like whatever, like my shoulder, or just like, so that way that I know that they want my attention when I'm done.
Right. Yep, good idea.
All right, we have a question. When looking at schools, what are some things I should look for? What are things I should be cautious of? And I don't know if this person is wondering about kindergarten or elementary schools or childcare schools. So maybe you could just answer both.
Well, if we're looking for, childcare providers or centers, you want to look at their quality rating. You don't want your child in anywhere that isn't connected with Colorado Shines at some shape or form, or even licensed, because you want to make sure that, number one, the state's coming in to make sure that they're at least giving some type of quality of something, number one. Number two, you want to make sure that they're involved in Colorado Shines, so then someone is laying eyes on that, they're not sitting around watching television. And so those are at least two things you want to look for when you're looking for childcare. Number one is are they licensed? Number two, are they at least a Colorado Shines level 1? And that is, if they're level 1, they're licensed. So you want to make sure that those two things are happening.
I believe parents need to do the research, but first, parents need to decide what kind of education they want for their child. There are schools out there that are highly academic. I worked at one in District 20, very academic, but it was too academic for some kids and some families. There are other schools who really espouse character traits, character things in their school. If that's something as parents you really want, I would say first decide what you as parents want, what kind of school you want, or what kind of education you want for your child, and then do your research and check into different schools, talk to other parents. And once we get through this whole COVID thing, I hope very soon we can start actually opening up schools to have tours and see people and talk to people. And Sarah Ellen, you just decided to put your child in a certain school, and what process did you go through?
I know for me, I was looking at, since I don't work near where I live, I was not considering my neighborhood school. I also, in particular, when I was looking, and we actually ended up homeschooling our child this last year for kindergarten, but when I was looking into elementary schools for kindergarten, one thing that was really important to me was to find an elementary school that offered enough recess time, because in the kindergarten age, recess is still so important. Children learn so much, not only from being able to play with other children, because they're still really learning from play at that point. They're learning all of those social skills that they don't necessarily get just in the classroom when they're having to listen to a teacher. So that was something that I considered a lot when deciding on a school for our child.
Colorado does have a rating system, and I don't have off the top of my head exactly what that website is, but there is a place that basically gives report cards to elementary schools too, and that would be worth pursuing if somebody, were interested in doing some research about that. We are so lucky, I feel like, in the Springs, because we have so many good choices out there. I know that we are luckier than a lot of places in the country. Even we offer many choices, and that's a really a jewel of a thing for parents. It really is. We're very blessed that way.
All right, we have a question here. Is there something I can do to help my child learn to draw in the lines? Is it just lots of practice? I don't know what age the child is. I know that there is a developmental progression when it comes to drawing and coloring. And so when you have babies and toddlers who are scribbling, that is all considered right when we think about the early literacy practice of right. It takes a long time for their hands to be able to get the fine motor development so that they can actually have the control to color within the lines. So you want to give them a lot of freedom to color however they want with as many materials as possible, using not only crayons, but also markers and even doing things like playing with sand and drawing sand, lines in the sand, or putting yogurt on a tray and tracing through things that way. There's a lot of ways that they will, develop those muscle movements and those muscle controls, playing with Play-Doh and having the ability to squeeze and squish and roll. All of those things are going to help get their hands ready to write. Do any of you have anything to add?
I worked with an OT when I taught kindergarten, and she told me every time before we started writing with the kids, she had them do spider push-ups, and the kids just loved that. I mean, they just thought that was so fun. And so we did that quite a bit beforehand, but it's what you were saying, Sarah Ellen, developing the muscles. I just worked with a kiddo last year who had really weak hand motor development. And the OT said, start getting him squishy balls, just squishing all the time. But I really do think that if a child has normally developing muscles, just let him do it as much, encourage him to do it as much. Like everything else, practice makes permanent, and getting them to just practice over and over again without stress, because drawing should be fun in my mind, at least. It should be fun, but have them practice, and I wouldn't assume anything is wrong. But again, depends on the child's age.
And how much coloring they do. Yeah. All right, we have another question here. We have a good number of questions in the queue, so we're going to keep these on at a clip. When my child starts preschool or kindergarten, how can I be a good parent for my child's teacher? I don't want to be a parent their teacher dreads.
I love the
Such
question.
a good question. I love that.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
Well,
I would just say,
Yeah,
I would
go
just say, like, listening to what your teacher has to say is a big thing. Because I just feel like there's a lot of times where I talk to parents and I feel like I'm not like being heard. So I just feel like being able just to listen to what they have to say, because they do spend a good part of their day with your child. So I just feel like that's probably the most important thing to me, is just listening to your teacher.
Yep.
I think that children from a very early age, need to understand that parents and teacher are on the same team, child. And we joke about, it used to be the kid would come home and say something, and the parent would go to the teacher and apologize for the kid. And sometimes these days it's turned a little bit upside down that way. But I think that what you said, Mara, is so true, that parents need to listen to the teachers, and also the inverse. Teachers really need to listen to the kids. I still think that the parents know their kids better than any teacher, although we're trained and we spend all those hours with. So it has to go kind of both ways. I think I love it when, again, in non-COVID times, I used to love it when parents came in and just volunteered. I would ask the parents, do you want to just sit and be a fly on the wall? That's fine. Do you want to participate and help with the kids? Do you want to help cut out things? Whatever. And I think once parents know that they're welcome in the classroom, as parents, we just kind of take a breath. It's all okay. It's all okay. They're willing to have me in. Now, we're in some nutty times here with COVID and restrictions. I don't even know if the schools are going to be allowed to have parents in this year even, but in an ideal situation, and I know that there are different teachers and there are different schools, who have different policies on parents. Some schools and definitely some teachers are not comfortable with parents in the classroom. So again, that's kind of something you want to check out if that's what you want to do. Check it out with the school and ask that questions. Do you allow parents in the school or in the classrooms to help?
That sounds like a great question to ask when you're thinking about the type of parent you want to be and what kind of school you want to send your child to. All right, we have another question here. What are the things that kids need to know before they turn 4?
I mean, I just feel like there's not like a specific list of things that your child needs to know by 4. I don't really know how to answer that question too well. Like I just said, I don't think there's a specific list. Yeah.
I would say that there is mastery versus process. And at 4 years old, your children should be in process. They should be in process of counting, recognizing, letters, recognizing rhymes, all that stuff, but it doesn't have to be mastered at 4. They're still their brains are going crazy with those synapses, those connections for sure. But it doesn't, even when I taught kindergarten, we talked not so much in terms of mastery, but process. Where are they in the process? Are they improving? Are they just beginning that process? So, I mean, I think all the things that we talked about that you need to be ready, a child needs to be ready for kindergarten, a 4-year-old should be in process of all those things. Learning to sit still, learning to pay attention, learning to shake somebody's hand when it's allowed again, learning to look somebody in the eye, all that kind of thing.
I love that you say that, Holly. It is, the process of learning things, but not expecting them to have finished learning things. Because when, again, we think about the 0 to 5 age range and you're thinking about early literacy, it's everything that a child knows about language and about words and reading before they're actually learning to decode words themselves. So we want them to recognize letters. We want them to look for letters, like when they're in the grocery store or looking for letters as you're driving down the road, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to know all the letters. Right. So I think that's a really good perspective to have. Thank you for sharing that. And if you want more information, or if you're looking for a specific list, please feel free to get in touch with me after the program, and I will do my librarian research and get something to you. All right, we have an attendee who has been working on teaching their 3-year-old to read, and they are starting to pick it up very slowly. The parent is not really putting a ton of pressure on it. Is it an expectation for children to be able to read a little bit by the time they get to kindergarten, or is that really not an expectation at all?
I will say it shouldn't be an expectation. There are some kindergarten teachers who do, but I don't think it is. When I was trained to be a teacher a million years ago, somebody said to me once, if a child is ready to read, you can't stop them. But if they're not ready, you can't push them. And especially true for preschool, pre-kindergarten ages. I think you can encourage them, you can demonstrate your own love of books and reading, you can read to them, but if it just amounts to a frustrating time with your child, like I said before, your relationship with your child is more important than if they read at 3 or 4. So I would say some schools do expect some amount of reading. I would say good schools know that the kids are all over the board, especially after this crazy year, and that many will not be, and that's okay. I always consider that a kindergarten teacher in first grade, really, honestly, kindergarten and first grade teachers is to help the kids learn how to read.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I wanted to point out there's a comment in the Q&A about an attendee who did a teaching internship in Finland and how play is their foundation, and it really is amazing. And I'd like to just comment off of that. A lot of Scandinavian countries, they really do focus on play, and And in some countries, they don't even think about teaching children to read until they're 7 years old.
Right.
So, you know, we do it a little bit differently here. There are schools, I believe there's at least one school in El Paso County, it might be Mountain Sun Elementary, that has a real focus on play. And if your child is interested and enjoying what they're learning and, you know, is excited about, you know, that process of reading, and then as Holly said, like, base it off of their interest. We want to make it as positive an experience as possible. So if they're enjoying it, then that's awesome, and keep going with that. And if your child is starting to feel resistant or is not enjoying it as well, don't feel like you need to be pressured to get them reading before kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have another question here. Piggybacking off of another question before, my 3-year-old will color for a long time and loves it, but doesn't hold the marker correctly. Is this going to be an issue? I don't want them to have to be retrained to prepare for writing.
Better to retrain at 3 than 5 or 6. And as a kindergarten teacher, it was almost impossible, believe it or not, for 5 and 6-year-olds to retrain their pencil grip. It was amazing how difficult that was. Sometimes it never happened the whole year. So I say, parents, if you can get them to do it. And again, it's just practice. It's just practice. And Mara, you probably have some cute little things that you say with how to hold a marker or a pencil, cute little words and stuff that the child can learn. But man, do it before they get to school. It's some people don't care, and I've seen adults who hold their pencil and I think, oh my gosh, that hand must hurt all the time from the way they're holding it. So I would say, if you can try, parent, and do it while they're 3 and get some hints from Mara maybe.
Working with 2-year-olds, I actually don't really have any like cute things to just say, like for them to hold a pencil. I mean, just at that age, I'm just starting to introduce kind of like just getting those muscles strengthened, I guess, is like the biggest thing that I focus on. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, I know if you have further questions about that, we should hopefully have an occupational therapist coming on in one of our future programs, and I bet they will have some ideas for some tips for how to retrain and everything. All right, what are some non-academic things I should do to help my child practice before school? For example, putting on a jacket, how to tie their shoe. What else would be helpful as their teacher?
Have your child. I was just going to throw out a quick one. Have your child carry their own backpack. I cannot tell you how many parents of kindergarten kids feel that they have to be the pack mule for their kids. Your kid is able to, in kindergarten, very, very able to put on and carry their own backpack and zip up their own backpack. And if you need practice before they get to school, then by all means practice.
I will, when I send out the list of resources, I think there will be some more information about non-academic things. One other thing that I was reading about recently is practicing how lunch will go, because they're not going to have much time for lunch. And some, you know, if you're going to be packing a lunch to send with them, make sure that they know how to open the different containers and what things are going to go in the trash and what things they need to bring back home with them. Maybe set a timer, like this is how long you're going to have to eat, so that they can start practicing now. So those are some quick.
Along with that is I was just going to piggyback off that. Along with that, if you can get your child to understand schedules and timers in some very, very simple way, that would be really helpful before they enter kindergarten, so that a child knows that they only have a certain amount of time to finish a worksheet or to finish getting ready for lunch or whatever it is. Those things can be practiced at home with simple timers and schedules, and they can do it too. They'll learn to do it.
That's a really good point. All right, we have one more quick question. I know it's 8:30, so we will end with this one. What is the best way to set a homeschooling or preschool schedule to incorporate some structured learning with play each day? How long would we expect like a structured learning time to be?
Are we talking about preschoolers here?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Well, I know for kindergarten kiddos, when we talk to parents about reading to their kids or working with them on math facts or whatever it is, numbers, whatever, a lot of little time slots is better than trying to make one long one. So if you're practicing letters, for instance, it's better to do 5 minutes 3 times a day than try to do 20 minutes excruciating minutes if your child is not up to it. So I really think there's for homeschool parents, one of my daughters homeschools right now, and she's got little ones too. And there are so many wonderful resources out there. Talk to other homeschool families. There are homeschool Facebook pages that you can kind of share ideas, but there's so many wonderful ideas out there. Having said that, you homeschool parent, you need to find something that works for your family. It does not have to necessarily be something that works for another homeschool family. You have to make it work. One year we homeschooled, and it was, I don't know why I was so crazy to try to homeschool my 3 kids when I had 6-month-old twins, but I did. And we had to carve it around what worked for our family. And my husband was in and out working his own business. You just, whatever it is that works for you. But if you just have no idea where to go, I would say, start talking to people and look online, because there are lots of schedules and suggested schedules, but just make it your own.
And I will just add one last thing. Since this parent said that they joined us late, we did emphasize earlier in the program how important it is to incorporate reading time every day. So be thinking about, just scheduling some reading time in, or scheduling it around your different activities, whether it's, before a nap or after lunch, but making sure you get that in every day would be also just hugely important. So thank you all so much for these wonderful answers to this session today. We had some really great questions. I'm so thankful for everyone who is in attendance today and to our panelists. And just as a quick reminder, please do look for the email that I will be sending out probably on Saturday with the resources that we talked about tonight, as well as information. If you have particular questions that you would like to get in touch with either Mara or Holly or Tanise about, they will have their contact information in that email. So thank you again, everyone, so much for participating. And please do register for our program next week. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck, parents.
You guys are going to do great. Bye, everybody.
Bye.